Good evening. I'm calling this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, may we please have a roll call?
Ann Ruby,
Here.
Paul Zimmerman,
Here.
Jack White,
Here.
Harry Lloyd,
Here.
Phyllis Maya,
Melia.
Delia,
Here.
Ida Wright,
Here.
Frederick Brown.
Present.
Okay. Welcome to the May 20th, 2024 meeting of the Charter Review Commission. We're happy to have you here with us tonight. Thank you for coming. At this time, we'll have our invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Who would like to lead the invocation? Volunteers? Voluntold? All right, there you go.
Invocation first.
Yeah, we'll do the invocation.
Yes.
Lord God, you lead us in all that we do. We ask that you guide this group and keep our minds on the city of Daytona and direct all of our wishes and our questions and our different discussions to be to the betterment of the city of Daytona. Watch over us as we have this meeting and as we return home. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to item number 4, which is adoption of the minutes of the May 6, 2024 meeting of the CRC, excuse me.
Let's see.
All right. So should I ask if anybody has any changes they want to make to the minutes? Okay. Do we need a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the minutes as printed with any necessary corrections.
Okay, second.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, minutes are approved.
Okay.
Now I have to read something. We'll now move on to item number 5, discussion and public comment and vote. Chief Driscoll to report.
Good evening, Madam Vice Chair and members of the commission. Included in your packet this evening is the best we're able to decipher consensus. You'll see a spreadsheet that is listed. Here, you could have this one, right? It is listed out by actual section of the charter. And if it is your pleasure, we could go briefly through them and have discussion and take a vote on any item that you wish to take a vote on.
That sounds like a great plan.
All right. On Article 4, Section 7, there was, I felt, consensus for a desire to have general public comment, to have a statement that it shall be recorded in the actual business meeting of the City Commission as it is today. My only recommendation is that when we're compiling this report to the commission, you could, not only are we sending things that they wish to, that this board wishes to bring forward to referendum or for the commission to consider, but you could also bring forward items that you'd recommend an ordinance take place, and I think we have a few of those. But that is my recommendation.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Yes.
No, just a question. Are we going procedurally, you want to vote on these as we go through them? And then, rather than go back and at the end of the meeting, I think maybe it'd be more productive just to vote on them as we go through.
I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
And Madam Vice Chair, if you're going to vote on these items as you go through them, you'll have to ask for public comment
Correct.
before you have each vote.
Okay. So, and we're voting on this as kind of our intention, and then later we will see the language that's going to actually be presented to the commission? Is that my understanding? Is that correct?
You won't see the actual ballot language. You'll see pretty much this, a section from Article 4, Section 7, the CRC recommends, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, all right, thank you, appreciate that. Okay, so, do I need to call for a motion on every single one of these?
If that is how the board wishes to proceed.
Yeah.
All right,
Public discussion first.
well, yes, so first we need a motion and a second on Article 4, Section 7. general public comment shall be part of the recorded business meeting of the city commission. Anybody want to make a motion?
I move that that be adopted.
Okay,
second
second, okay. All in favor?
Do we want,
Any
is there anyone in the
Oh, no,
audience?
no, oh, it was just, oh, yeah, that's right. Never mind. Okay, I should think I'd know how to do this. All right, do we have any, do you want public comment first and then board comment?
Sure.
Okay, let's do public comment first. No, no? Okay, no public comment. Any board members like to make a comment? Okay, now we can do a motion and no, don't you have to? I did that. All right, now let's do, this is why okay.
So you have a motion and second on the floor.
Okay,
Ask
so-
for a vote at this point.
All right, let's have a vote on this then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, all opposed? Okay,
This is on 4.
motion carries
My page
7-0.
Oh,
Okay,
okay. Well, you
For our
need-
next
you need this
item-
page.
Hey, I'm sorry, Drew.
Yeah.
I think you might be having some questions from some of the board members as to
That one came out blank.
how your proceeding reflects on the tables that were handed out, so maybe you could orient the members to that as you discuss each item, like it begins on page 7 of 9. If you maybe go through it that way would be helpful.
I am. We
Okay.
went through Article 4,
Right,
Section 7.
We're starting on page 6 of 9.
page 6 of 9.
Yes.
Thank you.
And so next is Article 4, Section 8. It was brought forward by this commission to discuss term lengths. So at the recommendation of the board, I offer the note at the bottom that Florida representatives serve 2-year terms limited to 4 terms total, and Florida senators serve 4-year terms limited to 2 terms. Here I've listed 3 options just to assist in the conversation. The first option is a term length of 4 years and a term limit of 2 terms per position. Option 2 was a term length of 2 years and a term limit of 4 terms per position. And option 3, doing some investigation, I found this in Port Orange. It is I did not put the 4-year term, but it is a limit of 3 consecutive terms.
Ah, I wondered about that.
What are their term lengths, though? Are they 4-year terms or 2-year terms?
I did not write that down, and I'd hate to incorrectly
I think
Okay.
state a
four.
fact.
I think there are 4.
I believe
I
it's
think they're
4, but I
4.
didn't want to state.
so that's 12 years.
That's 12.
Okay.
Now, are we voting on sending all 3 options are we discussing or considering sending all 3 options to the commission and have them decide? Or are we trying to determine what option this committee is going to recommend?
I think we should try to determine what this committee's going to recommend, and then the commission can
That's staff's recommendation.
vote yes or no, or whatever else they want to do. All right, so wait one second. Do I need to make this motion to get discussion?
Yes.
Okay,
Technically.
all right, so then,
We know which one they're.
Oh, well, yeah, we don't.
we don't know yet. Okay, so let's have discussion first. Okay,
Yeah, I'd like to propose that we do them in we suggest the order. In other words, option whichever we list as the first option we wish them to adopt. If they vote against that, then second option would come up. That way we get an opportunity to at least put all options before the city commission.
I actually think it would be better to separate length of term and term limits, so that you're not, if we recommend, I'm going to make up a number, a 1-year term limit, a 1-year term with 5 term limits, if they say no to that, then we don't have anything about term limits available to them. So I think we should have first a discussion and an option on the length of term, and then go to term limits. Does that make sense to everybody?
Isn't that in each of the options?
What?
We've discussed the 4-year term. Going back to the last meeting, I think pretty much when we did a little straw poll, that we were looking at a 4-year term with the 2 terms per position as the primary wish of the commission. That's the impression I got before we left.
Well, yes and no, because I think there are members up here who would prefer 2-year terms. So I think we do need to have some discussion on that. And did you wanted to be recognized?
I just had a question. Was one option no change?
Yes.
In which one is that even?
It's not listed, it's
Okay.
at this board's discretion.
Yeah.
So the way you would find that that's the board's preference is you would either, A, get no motions with seconds, or B, whatever motions and seconds are made, fail.
Okay.
Okay.
And if you do want to take the issue separately, Ms. Chair, maybe you want to just ask first if there's a motion on the floor to change the term length.
Okay.
And before anybody makes that motion, I just want to remind those of you who were here previously and advise those of you who were not that even year terms will allow the city to keep on ensuring that elections are part of the general election process, which is a much less expensive process to go through than the special election process that we would otherwise have to pay for if we had odd-numbered year terms,
Correct, because somebody had proposed 3-year terms.
like 3 or 5, right?
Right.
Could you remind us of those numbers? I think they were pretty, magnitude was pretty high.
Yeah, and again, don't hold me to this, but I was told by the supervisor of elections that a special election citywide could run in the neighborhood of $300,000 to $350,000.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, yes, Paul.
So we can just kind of expedite the matter?
Yes,
I make a motion to go to 2-year terms.
okay. Anybody want to second that motion?
That's option 2, right?
Well, no, we're separate, we're just ignoring this right now.
I'll second that.
Okay, so now we're open for discussion. Do we want to have board comment or public comment first?
It's up
What?
to you,
Oh.
Chair. We can have public
All right.
comment. Does any member of the public want to speak on this item?
2-year terms versus 4-year terms?
Now, keep in
No?
mind that if
Okay.
you break it up this way, those of you who would be voting in favor of this would be voting in favor of this regardless of the length of term limits. So-
We haven't set that.
We have-
I thought we were going
That
to do
would be
it.
separate.
Right, just.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. All right, yes, yeah,
I'd like to speak on that.
sure.
We've got it pretty well defined in the way it's written here on the paper, where we have 2-year terms with maximum of 4 terms for term limits. When you split them, you have the opportunity to have 2-year terms with 2-year limits, meaning 4 years, or you can have 4-year terms with 4 limits. So you could end up with 16. So I really think we should leave the verbiage as it is in our paper here, so that 2-year terms are with the 4-year limits.
So I would recommend.
4-term limits.
If you want to keep those two ideas coupled, vote no on this motion, and if those motions fail, somebody could always, at a later point in the meeting, bring a motion that deals with both term length and term limits.
Yeah, because I feel that the purpose of the motions that we made previously was to limit to 8 years is what we're looking at. With the way, if we're going to split it, it could conceivably be anywhere from 2 to 16. And I think that misses the point of what we were trying to present. So I personally would like to oppose this and return to the original verbiage that we have.
Yeah, voting no on this motion would not prohibit you from voting yes on a subsequent motion that deals with both topics in the same
And right now, we have a motion on the floor for 2-year terms.
just 2-year terms
Right.
without regard to term limits.
An up or down vote.
Okay,
I'd like to speak to that.
yep,
I believe that 2-year terms do not give an adequate time for a newly elected commissioner to serve and produce. The wheels turn slowly, and I think that 4-year terms have been, or would be the most productive for a commissioner to get things done. I'll cite an example. There's a cell tower that was going up in the LPG area, and it's taken over 3 years to get that done. Should that commissioner have to stop, then start start canvassing or campaigning for election, I think it slows the process of projects that are in progress. So I think a 4-year term is pretty much served the purposes of the city to date, and I think that it would be the most productive way and the smoothest way to continue the city management.
Okay. Anybody else want to make comments?
Well, I would say, point taken, but I'm more concerned about the representative form of government that we're supposed to have here. And the closer the candidate is to the people, the better. And there's no time that the candidate is closer to the people than when he's campaigning. Secondly, getting projects started rarely takes the day-to-day management of the elected official. Once the project is voted up or down, city staff, which is a constant, it doesn't change with the elected officials changing. The motion or the project will take on its own momentum and will continue regardless of whether the commissioner is sitting here or out campaigning or at home. So I don't think that the day-to-day operations or the day-to-day progress of any certain project is contingent or reliant on the presence of an elected official. I think the elected official gets the project going by their vote, and after that, city staff takes over. And we've had city staff in this building for 30 and 40 years. So I don't think that there'll be any loss of continuity there. I'm really concerned about the situation we've gotten into before, where we've got people that are, they get elected, and they may be enthusiastic for the first year or two, and then they kind of just show up when they show up, and the zone doesn't get very significant representation. I think that's really detrimental to the form of government that we're supposed to have here. Again, I say the closest that the representative to the people is when they're campaigning, and that's the best thing that we can have. So I'm very much in favor of 2-year terms. Of course, I'm only one vote on the board, but I think, and as far as longevity of the process is concerned, the city of Daytona Beach had 2-year terms. I think there were 2-year terms 10 or 15 years ago. There were 2-year terms. I don't know when we went to 4, but it's not been that long ago.
2004, I think.
2004, okay, 20 years ago. So I think 2-year terms are the way to go.
I've listened to the different points of view. As far as the continuity and efforts, while they might stay on the docket, different commissioners have different focuses, and sometimes the focus falls off on when the second commissioner comes in. And while, yes, city staff is tasked with doing it.
Oh, interesting.
Was it something I said?
I think that was it, 2-year terms, right?
It's really the commissioners that drive those efforts, and so I understand the idea that you want to keep everybody on their toes and keep the effort going, but you're punishing all the commissioners for the fear that one or two might lose effort or lose faith or lose interest, and so I would rather work on focusing on getting the right commissioner in, getting them the right task, and then keep them in there for as long as they can to keep that effort going. So I'm in favor of 4 years.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment? Okay.
Just
So-
one more
Yes.
comment. The active campaigning is very expensive, and I think that having that cycle every 2 years might bring donations and influencing of the candidate more repetitiously. So I think that running for office is not a cheap endeavor, and I think that if we kept it at 4 years, then that commissioner could serve the people that they were served, that they were elected to do. And if they don't do the job, then the electorate shouldn't send them back. They should not.
Okay. So I have several thoughts on this. First of all, Congress people, which is an infinitely more complex job than this one, they're elected for 2-year terms. And yes, they may bring a staff with them to DC, and that staff may be well-educated and able to be professional, but they are doing that job only for 2 years. And some of them are quite effective. So I think this, and the same thing with State House. I think we have 2-year terms all over the place, and it's expected that when you run, you're going to be able and capable to serve when you put your butt in the seat. That you're not going to have, well, I kind of ran for fun, and now I'm going to take a year and learn the job while I sit here. So I think this notion that you have to have a steep learning curve, I think commissioners, it should be taken seriously enough that you should expect them to know what they want to do when they get here. The second thing is redistricting is a mess right now. If you go to staggered 4-year terms, every time you do every time we have a 10-year census, somebody is running for 2 years, either before or after the redistricting, because we can't keep commissioners in their zones anymore. So somebody's going to have to be running. They may all have to run. Either the first 3 will run prior, and then they get redistricted out. They may have to run again, right away again in 2 years when we redistrict. So 2-year terms makes redistricting much cleaner, much cleaner.
If I can.
yes.
Your second point may or may not be true.
Not accurate.
There's a new statute that has been the basis for a challenge against the city's own redistricting legislation, but I don't necessarily agree with the point that we cannot keep commissioners in their zone. They may or may not be able to stay in their zone. You just can't redistrict with the intention of keeping them within their zone, so.
Okay, point taken. That's a fine point on that, but thank you.
And
I
in
appreciate
fact-
that.
In fact, I think it'd be a reasonable position to take that there may be considerations for doing that include, for example, avoiding special elections and avoiding voter chaos. So it hasn't been determined yet, but, and I don't want to interrupt too much, but that's not necessarily a given. So,
But it is possible
it's
that
possible.
you ran in 2020, the census comes out, and now redistricting happens in 2021, and so now you have to run again in 2022.
Well, right now, what the
I mean, that
charter-
could happen,
Right now, what
correct?
the charter says is that if as a result of a redistricting, you no longer reside in your zone, you no longer qualify for office. And so depending upon when in the term cycle that is, either the governor would need to appoint a replacement or the majority of the remaining commissioners would need to appoint a replacement.
Okay, so if I understand this right, a 2-year term is going to fall within a 10-year cycle. I mean, right. A 4-year term is not. A 4-year term is going to end up falling, half your commission is going to end up in the wrong cycle for the 10-year redistricting. So it will.
I was only commenting on the one point that the vice chair made.
Right. So 2-year terms actually work in the benefit of the redistricting.
The other thing that I wanted to say when you were speaking about focus, if you have 4-year terms and you have a commissioner who is focused on something that the electorate doesn't want, then that's 2 extra years where the focus is not going to be on where some of the people want it.
Well, yeah, but they wouldn't have gotten voted in to begin with.
But just say it, unseating an incumbent is a heavy lift. And I think 2-year terms helps address that. The other thing is when we listen to the people in the workshops, seemed to me, what? It seemed to me that there was a lot of, on both sides, 2 years, 4 years, 2 years, 4 years. So I think rather than us deciding it by a vote, that we're going to keep it at 4 years, we could pitch it to the commission as 2 years. And let them decide.
You mean
Because-
just go ahead and pitch it for 2 years?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem right to me.
Well, if that's
you-
what, I think that's, to me, it's like, the people that we heard in the workshops were
If you're
evenly
50-50, why would you pitch the opposite idea of what you wanted?
No, I want 4 years. I want 2 years.
I realize that, but if I wanted 4 and we're 50-50, why would we pitch what you want to the commission?
Because then we're putting the decision closer to the elected body, that the people who came to the workshops.
If it's a bad idea, it's a bad idea.
Well, I think what Ann is trying to say is that it's already 4 years. So we don't change anything, we don't change anything. By not pitching it as a 2-year deal, the commission has nothing to vote on. We're maintaining the status quo. So the only way that we can convey the choice to the city commission is to endorse a 2-year term.
That doesn't make any sense to me, because we could go through the whole docket here and just offer the opposite.
I think you're missing the point, though,
Yes,
Jack.
you're missing the point.
Yeah.
There were so many people that spoke to 2-year terms.
But I think that's the point. It was 50-50. Right now.
No,
You don't take a 50-50 and offer the opposite.
Hold on.
No, no, I'm
Sorry,
saying was-
hold on. I'm sorry. So we need to have one person talking on the record at a time.
And I was saying, that it was 50% who said keep it at 4 years, 50% who had keep it at 2. But we have a motion on the floor, so really, that's irrelevant what you're thinking. We need to vote on this motion.
Okay, and I think we can vote on this motion unless we have any, we'll open up to public comment again. Anybody, nobody? Okay. yes.
Did want to say one thing.
Sure.
We're talking as if campaigning is some type of punishment or hardship for the candidate. That's very disturbing to me.
No, I'm not.
I don't think we are.
I'm not saying that, but when we use the terms of U.S. Senate and U.S. Congress, that's their job.
I didn't say Senate.
Well, no, what you said, Congress, am I
I
correct?
said House of Representatives.
Well, House of Representatives, part of Congress. That's their job. Most of your city commissioners and your mayor of all the cities in our Volusia County have other jobs. So you're not comparing apples to apples, and I don't think that's fair. That's correct. So again, Madam Chair, we have a motion on the floor.
But we also do have state house representatives who work full-time jobs.
No, not full-time, because when they go to Tallahassee, that is their job, and whoever.
For
their
a few
employer-
months.
But many of them are self-employed, and whoever their employer gives them the time. Again, that is, you're not comparing apples to apples.
Correct.
Okay, so any more discussion? All right,
Just so everybody's clear, the motion on the floor is to recommend that the terms be changed to 2-year.
correct.
Yes.
So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor of changing to 2 years, say aye.
We ought to poll this vote.
Oh, we want to do a roll call vote? Okay, let's do a roll call vote.
Okay. Frederick Brown.
Opposed?
Okay. Let's see.
Opposed means,
No.
No,
No,
I mean, not going to 2 years.
not going to 2 years. Paul Zimmerman. Phyllis
Malia,
Malia, why can't
no
I get
problem. 4.
that? So no.
No,
on the
yes.
2
I'm.
years.
I'm
He means yes, not
I'm
4
yes.
years.
Favor?
I'm in favor of, sorry.
But not 4.
So right now, we're voting on 2-year
Yeah,
terms.
2-year.
Okay, so yes,
Yes, I'm in favor of 2 years.
Ms. Rowe
No.
and Ms. Ruby.
yes. I mean, yes, 2-year terms.
Two,
So-
3, 4, so it fails
Fails.
3 to 4.
3 to 4, okay, cool. So now we're going to go to term limits. So,
We need to go to the 4-year first.
what?
We would go to 4-year.
Term first.
Well, it's,
It is 4 years.
it already is 4 years.
Okay.
That's
So it's 4
Okay.
years, and then the 2,
Sorry
that's okay. The
Point taken.
4, so do we want to do then option 1? 4-year, terms of 4 years, add a term limit of 2 terms per position. A person completing 2 terms can run again after a vacancy of 1 term.
I move option 1.
All right, anybody second option 1?
I second.
Point of order.
Yes?
We're splitting option 1, so,
We don't have to.
well, what I was saying is that was the decision made earlier.
No.
No, we've voted,
On the limits versus the terms.
That's
yes,
what
but
she
since
said.
we didn't change the terms that we're recommending, then option 1, we can examine
Right.
option
All I'm
1.
asking is for clarification of the way it's worded.
Okay, so are you clear on option 1?
Yeah, I gotta find my page.
So this is a motion,
There it is.
both regarding the term length and term limits.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's how I was reading it,
4-year terms, two times.
term limits.
But
4-year terms, 2 times. A person completing 2 terms can run again after a vacancy of 1 term. For purposes of beginning the term limit count, term limits shall begin upon the next election in which the mayor or city commission is seated. So in 2024, the term limits would begin for the mayor, zone 2, 4, and 6, and in 2026, the term limits would begin for those commissioners elected to zone 1, 3, and 5.
all my suggestion was on clarity, since we're not changing the term length, it's currently 4 years, is that we strike that verbiage from it and just add the term limit. Follow what I'm trying to say? Because we opted to split it, and now you're putting it back together again, so.
Okay.
I'm just saying, strike the part about term like 4 years.
Okay.
I will not rescind my motion. Was there a second? If not, it dies.
I didn't hear.
I made a motion that we go with option 1, 4 years and 2-term limits.
Okay.
So if there was not a second, it just dies.
Well, I'll second that. What we were saying is, we've already done the 4-year bit.
Right.
We're done with that.
Right.
So now it's
2,
2-term limits. 8 years.
8 years.
So
I'll
basically,
second that motion.
option 1, but cross out the 4-year term language.
But I think the intent is that option 1 is to retain the current 4-year term.
Correct.
It's really just a question of wordsmithing a ballot question.
Correct.
We would need to include that ultimately if the commission, wanted to go that way.
Thank you.
Okay, so what is the motion that we're voting on? Are we voting on simply saying,
We're
Retain the
voting,
4-year
my motion was that we utilize option 1, as you said, wordsmithing the,
Yeah, as
you
written
know,
is fine.
the current term is 4 years, but they're limited it to the 2 terms.
okay, so
You're
is,
moving option 1 as written.
Exactly,
Yeah.
basically.
And
okay,
that's what the second was.
does and somebody you wanted to see?
I'll second it, yes.
Okay. Do we have any citizen comment? Any board discussion?
Can we amend the motion to strike the first portion of that?
You could,
No.
you could request an amendment, and then it would be up to the party who
All right.
seconded and the party who made the motion whether they want to amend
I-
it.
I'm-
But Mr. Brown, the
requesting.
thing that to understand is, I don't think that the ballot question would include those first few words, just because, as you pointed out, they are currently in the charter.
Right.
It's understood that this motion is one which would not amend the length of the terms. It would just create term limits based on the current.
Understood, I'm just, looking for clarity in what we're
Yeah.
voting.
I think it's clear.
I think it's clear.
I didn't want to muddy the water.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So are we ready to move to a vote? I think so. All right. All those
Call the
in
question.
all those in favor of voting for option 1?
Are we doing roll call again, or?
I really think we should roll call these,
I do
just
Okay.
for
All
historical.
right, let's just
Right.
roll call it then.
Yeah,
So,
hysterical.
Mr. Brown,
In favor?
Ms. Ruby,
Oh, in favor.
Mr. Zimmerman,
No.
Mr. White,
Yes.
Mr. Lloyd,
Yes.
Ms. Phyllis,
Yes.
and Ms. White. Right, I'm sorry, right.
That's okay, yes.
So that passes 6-1
Okay,
to recommend the.
here we go.
Those are going to be
The
the
next item of discussion on the list before you is Article 4, Section 9. There was a conversation regarding the number of excused absences from moving from 4 absences consecutively to 2. Though at the end of the meeting, I think there was conversation regarding if it was needed at all, seeing how the commission excuses their own members. Would you actually see this on a ballot, is the question.
I make a motion that we keep the wording as is. I think the intent of my point was that it would be public review or consideration with, and what I was really trying to get at when you say unexcused, so if the commissioner said this absence is not excused, and that commissioner didn't show up, that would be strike one, right? And if it happened again, that would be strike two. And there wouldn't be 3 strikes in the game. So rather than the way it is now, you know, it was just a point of having that commissioner or show up and be there and, you know, make the effort to be there rather than the effort not to be there, is really what I was trying to get to. So that was the whole point.
Okay.
Can I ask what the penalty is if they should miss 3?
Stock and pillory out in the, on Ridgewood.
No, seriously, what happens? I mean, is there some kind of reprimand or?
I think the charter says they're removed.
They're removed.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you exceed the absence, you're removed.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's in the charter.
Keep that language that exists in the charter? Okay.
yeah,
But just change the language from 4 to 2.
4 to 2.
Okay. All
Are
right.
you making that motion?
I would make that motion.
Anybody want to second that
I'll
motion?
second.
Okay, any discussion?
And
Okay,
Public comment? Did you? have
public
a-
comment?
To change it to 2,
Change it to 2.
from 4 to 2.
Okay,
The rest of the paragraph stays the same.
all right. Would you like to take a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Mr. Brown?
In favor?
Okay. Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Lloyd?
Yes.
Ms. Maia?
Yes,
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ruby?
Yes,
Great.
So that passes.
That was easy.
Yes.
all right.
So show you got.
Ben, on the next item, which is Article 4,
I'm sorry, Drew, before you go to that, I just want to make a point. Drew, you listed this as Article 4, Section 9. It's actually Article 4, Section 13 that deals with this
it's in
issue
both.
right now.
It's in both.
So, but here's the
Yeah.
thing. When we bring it forward, we don't need to correct the motion. As it moves forward, we'll decide where it goes. The substance of the motion
Gotcha.
is what's important. What charter provision it goes in is secondary, so.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry, Drew, go ahead.
no, but I'm just stating it is in both sections. And so because we just took that vote, we would amend all language necessary to accommodate what you just voted on, so I'm going to skip 13.
Cool.
Oh, well, there it is, yes.
Yeah.
You were talking about cross-reference provisions. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Article 5, Section 21, there's conversation to remove subsection C regarding the election, or a member could be elected during the primary. And I have a note here that all the other Volusia cities follow what the city currently does, in which anyone receiving the majority of votes between 2 candidates can be elected during the primary.
that was 521.
Yeah.
Okay.
521 subsection C.
Say again? Not
Fi-
that part, the part about what it says, please.
Is currently, if there are 2 candidates running in a primary, they can, the person receiving the majority of votes at that primary can win election.
So for instance, I believe it was the last time Mayor Henry ran for office. He received, there were
3 candidates.
3 candidates, or it might have been 4, where he received 50% plus 1
Right.
of the vote and was duly elected at the primary to mayor.
But if there were 2 candidates,
It wouldn't go to a
It wouldn't go to a
primary. It
primary.
only goes to a primary if there is more than 2.
Greater than
Sorry.
so what is subsection C saying?
Subsection C is saying that
When-
out of that primary of 3 or more people that it go, if someone in that primary gets 50% plus 1 of the vote during that primary, that they are duly elected.
And the motion is to what, change that?
Someone,
Move it?
yeah,
It was Again, it was me.
Majority, plurality?
No, so that if
So then if they remove that section, then the top two candidates would move on to a general instead of,
I think that what we were discussing is that there's a different demographic to a primary voter, or potentially a different demographic from a primary voter to a regular election voter. And that was the point, that if, you just might have different people show up, so
correct.
that's what I was trying to get to.
That's a good point. All right, do we want to have any discussion on this? Anybody else want to comment on this? Any public comment on this?
I concur with that there is definitely a different demographic. It also gives the opportunity for the top two candidates to continue to debate the issue, which can sometimes, as you know, in national elections, sway the votes. So I do think it would be better if we took the top two candidates and did move them forward.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to cost the city anything extra because we have to do the election anyway.
Correct. Yes.
Well, I would just question why it was put in this way to begin with. I mean, like, there's got to be a reason. And all the other cities apparently are under our current format. Is that correct? I just caution against taking out something without understanding the background.
So I want to be sure I understand this. So if we have three candidates running and somebody wins 50% plus one, they don't automatically win that election?
Correct. It goes to the general. The top two go to the general,
if we change it.
if we change it.
If we change it. Right now, they would win.
Yeah.
And they would.
And I think that's a very good point, that the demographic is very different that shows up for the general.
To me, that's penalizing the winner.
If they get 80%, then they still have to run.
It's a moot point.
Then they'll win again. But
If they're that good, they will win it.
just, the thought was that you get different turnout, a different set of, potentially, different set
Yeah.
of voters, that's all.
I think we spoke to,
Do we have any statistics on what percentage of the voting population votes in the primary versus the general?
I don't.
I think we discussed
Considerably
that it
smaller.
was considerably smaller. I thought it was.
And to that point, when you have a primary, oftentimes it's special interest groups, certain large firms within the city that put a lot of pressure on the primary. And so therefore, a lot of people don't realize how important the primary is, as you pointed out, to a different demographic. And unfortunately, I feel that gives too much control to special interest groups and not enough control to the voters. So I would like to see the campaign go on a little longer to where the citizens actually get a chance to vote on it and not special interest groups.
So I'd always look for examples on when it's currently failed. Has it been a problem in the past? And if it has, we remedy it. If it hasn't, why are we changing it? I mean, is Mayor Henry is something that we didn't feel that happened in that instance incorrect? So why would we change it? I understand the idea, but has it failed and are we changing something, or has it been fine and we're changing something that hasn't been a problem in the past?
I think that,
We're creating a problem. We're creating a potential problem that hasn't existed. So.
and I think the assignment of this body was to read and challenge the charter. And it was just a point that, in my reading of Section C,
Yeah.
just so that's the reason I brought it up. I brought it up to have this body do exactly what we're doing, is kick it around.
Yeah, I'm just making the point of, has it been a problem? If it hasn't,
Don't know.
Well, it's one of those problems that could occur and we never know it. We don't know whether it's a problem or not, because I agree, the primary voter, if we looked at the number of voters that vote in the primary versus the number of voters that vote in the general, there's going to be a huge disparity there.
There is.
And if we're having a representative government, then is it wise to use the smaller the smaller subset versus the larger? I see your point.
I mean, I just looked at the last mayoral race in 2020, and sorry I don't have my papers in front of me, but Mayor Henry got about 6,000 plus votes. So we elected our mayor in a primary, and it was COVID, so things were unusual, but a city of 71,000 he only got 6,000 plus votes. I think Mayor Henry does a great job, but I think it wouldn't have hurt to have gone on to the general. So, all right, any more discussion? All right, let's,
And Madam Madam
Oh, there's
Chair,
no-
have you asked for discussion from the audience yet?
I looked out there.
Oh, okay.
I think she did it.
They're not, those two are not shy, they'll speak up.
Just
And I
on the
don't-
record.
Did
have-
you want to?
I don't have a motion in a second.
Oh, there's no
Oh,
motion.
yeah, well, motion and second. Oh, yeah, so anybody want to make the motion? That
Or
we,
did you want to speak, Ms. Rodriguez?
well, we have to,
Okay.
let's do the motion first. and then-
Yeah, you have to do the motion first.
so-
I'll make a motion that we remove subsection C.
I'll second.
Okay, all right, now. Can you come up
If you'll
to
come to the
microphone,
microphone, yeah, thank you.
Tell us who you are. Evelyn?
Rodriguez. So I was in favor of removing this, but after listening to all these discussions, okay, mathematically, so she says that he got 50 plus 1, and I'm not fond of him, but anyway. So 50 plus 1. So in essence, okay, so the other 49, even if they came together and voted for one of those, would it make a difference?
The argument, I think, is that it would be, the pool would be bigger. You would have more voters.
I know
You might
for
have twice
sure.
as many voters
I
considering it.
testified last time that I do work the elections every time, and it's totally very slim picking in August, but in November, we have to like close the door on some people, so it's true.
That's, yeah, I remember your comments now. I couldn't remember who it was.
Okay, Sandy?
So the point is, by striking C, it allows more of the voters, a larger body of voters to decide on the positions.
Sandra Murphy, I agree with what Fred just said, and what I'm hearing around the table is that if you want to get the most representative voice, you want the most people is in the fall election. So I think it should be changed to reflect that.
So the primary then just becomes a winnowing rather, of the field.
Correct.
So,
Instead of,
so why have a primary then?
oh, because if you have more than 2 candidates, then you've cut it down to 2. If you have 4 candidates, you've cut it down to 2.
But again, why have a primary?
Isn't the extra
Honestly,
expense? How much does a primary
why would
cost?
we do that? That just don't make sense. Because if we're going to know we're going to general, just go to general. I'm just asking, why have a primary?
To winnow the field.
You have to
You're
have
not-
just 2 candidates in the final.
Whoever's going to win, be it
Why do you have to
2,
just put
3,
2
5, or
candidates?
7, is going to win.
If you have 2
General-
candidates and they all get 33%, then what? You have
We're back to the first question.
Ah, yep.
How much does a primary cost?
Well, the
And we're
primary is
talking-
happening no matter what. So,
Well, not if there's not anyone,
No, well-
if they were pushing it on to November.
no, but to put the municipal elections on a primary ballot, the August primary is going to happen for many other offices.
Correct.
So the cost to us is minimal. I think it does cost us something. It's like 50,000, special elections cost.
I
a lot.
think there's a mail notice that the supervisor has to put out, and it runs in the range of $50,000, which I don't, Ms. LaMagna could tell you whether we get charged for that or not, but I think we do.
But
For
it-
both the primary and
Sure.
the final election.
But the primary ballot that goes out or the mail would cover State House and Congress and everything.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
So it's not just our little election.
right. Which is why I think they only charge us the cost of mailing to our citizens.
So we'd save, in the current format, we save the $50,000 mailer for the general if there was only that one position.
If there was only one position, but there's always going to be at least 3, possibly 4. I mean, if everybody got elected in the primary, that's true. You wouldn't have to do a mailing, but there's, if you're unopposed, that's true. But, all right.
And just for clarification, when,
This is academic discussion, so.
if a candidate is eliminated, and their name is still on the ballot, there's, they supply papers to the electorate to let them know that even though somebody's name is on there, they're no longer available.
You mean if somebody, if there's 3 candidates and then you cut it down to 2 in the primary, then the general ballot would only have 2 names?
Correct.
Right, hopefully, but sometimes, I'm just saying that if for some reason all 3 people happen to be on there, but you have already eliminated one.
How would they happen to be on there?
They wouldn't be on there. It would be whoever out of the
The
top
ones that
2.
resign? Because I've seen it a lot of times.
It would only happen if someone was moved on to the general election in November. But since we're only taking the top 2, it could only be 2. And then if someone were resigned between the primary and they would still have their name on the ballot, but they would be also duly elected because the other person would be duly elected because they had no opposition.
So because you're trying to consider the cost here, would there be any difference? They have to go through and change names anyway, other names, so there won't be really much of a difference or a hardship on the city.
Okay.
Okay, so any other board discussion?
I have a quick question for you, Madam Clerk. So normally, based on the elections, when they come to the general, most people who don't vote in the primary, they're normally going to just vote on the president or the governor. Am I correct? What are your numbers, or do you have an idea? You may not, and that's fine.
I don't have an idea.
Thank you.
I actually could, if had I come prepared for that question, I could have actually told you that. Because if you look at the
I normally have
voters,
that.
Yeah,
And I know
it's
that
easy
from
to, it's easy to figure that out.
Yeah, but I can tell you the numbers for city and municipality is still low. Normally, they're coming for the presidential, the governor, or state offices. It's not for your local races, but I'm done. It's a vote on the floor.
All right, let's have a vote. Thank you for your points.
Okay, so this is to remove subsection C.
Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Brown,
In favor?
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. White,
No.
Mr. Lloyd,
Yes.
Ms. Maya. What is it?
Malia.
Malia, okay.
Oh, yeah.
You
Malia.
can call me Malia, too. I'll answer. Yes, I am for that.
Ms. Wright
No.
and Vice Chair Ruby.
Yes.
Okay, so that passes 5-2.
All right, next.
Next item, up for bid, is Article 5, Section 23, the removal of the term freeholder, which refers to people who own properties within the city, only being allowed to vote on referendum items in which the city is taking on an expense.
I would make a motion to approve removal.
Anybody want to second that
I will
motion?
second that.
Okay, any discussion? Any citizen comment? Okay. Let's go quick. Let's vote.
Okay. Mr. Brown,
No.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. White,
No.
Mr. Lloyd,
Yes.
Ms. Malia,
Very
Yes.
Ms. Wright,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ruby.
Yes.
Okay, so that passes 5-2.
If we end up voting on these items, we could break them apart for a vote, but at your pleasure, I'm going to consolidate Article 6, 7, and 8, number 27, 29, and 31. This was regarding adding a date certain for December 31st for the completion of the annual appraisals. As you recollect from our original training, this could be accomplished again by ordinance. It doesn't need to be a charter provision that would go on the ballot just to set a date, but it is this board's wishes, then it will move forward.
Okay, is there a motion on the floor to, anybody want to make a motion to adopt this?
Are we talking about 720?
But setting a date for the city manager's evaluation,
The city manager, the
Make a
city
city
motion.
attorney, and the
adopt.
city auditor.
27, 29, and 31.
Yes. You made a motion? Okay, anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion?
I have a point.
Yes.
In light of recent newspaper articles regarding the available cash to the permitting and licensing department, and the fact that the city is going under a state audit, I made last time, and I didn't make a big point out of it, but I think in section 31, when it talks about the city auditor, the charter says the city commission may appoint a city auditor. I submit that we should make that shall. I think that we've reached to the point in this city where we need to have a standing city auditor appointed by the commissioners, reporting to the commissioners, just to make sure that things like what we're reading in the paper going on now potentially wouldn't happen. So I just, for the changing of one word, it might have changed this whole situation. So I
Okay,
just throw that out.
But that's a separate discussion. So,
Well, it's,
no, but we're discussing the evaluations now, and there's no reason we can't revisit that as a separate
okay,
discussion.
that's fine.
I think,
And I'll withdraw my little diatribe there.
Okay.
okay. It was good.
But it was good, yes.
I'll remember
Okay,
that later.
so we had a
Remember it?
first and a second. Anybody else want to discuss whether the evaluation should be done in the charter by a date certain? I would like to add, we can draw and quarter the commission if they don't do it. but We can't do this because there's no way that that their direct reports should go unevaluated for years.
Madam Chair, that, I don't think that would be legal.
Yes.
Draw and quarter?
And I'm only kidding, of course.
I just wanted to.
Okay, I appreciate your advice, thank you. Okay, so anybody else want to have a discussion on this? Audience? All right, so let's have,
You do?
oh,
Okay.
yes.
Come on up.
You can sit in the first row if you want. Okay.
Those springs are sprung in the front row, it's hard to sit there.
Only one point. Isn't it difficult to do it December 31st when the fiscal year is from September?
The thinking was that it should be done shortly after the conclusion of a fiscal year and strategic planning for the next year.
Oh, the strategic plan.
So that it kind of all is part, you could do it in the beginning of November, you could do it, but just so that it could put a little more emphasis on the fact that it needs to be done annually.
Okay, so we're not holding to December 31st, we just
No.
do it for a certain.
No, we're saying no later than December 31st.
Oh, okay.
I can do it sooner.
Okay, are we ready to vote? Let's go,
Okay.
please.
Mr. Brown,
In favor?
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. White,
Yes.
Mr. Lloyd,
Yes.
Ms. Melia,
Yes.
Ms. Wright,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ruby.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and now, I don't know what section it is, Drew, the shall and may of the city auditor position?
That is section, or Article 8, Section 31. But I did want to speak to the article. So this article states there's nothing wrong. In fact, that very meeting, 55 cities, and that was just that monthly meeting, 55 cities were given the same similar letter, including the city of Port Orange, the city of Gainesville, larger cities. An audit is not a negative. We go through it voluntarily. We go through an audit on a continuous basis. So I don't think that this article, I think it's fair, but just to a quick read, the word audit comes off as a negative, but if our problem is having too much money,
Well, I appreciate the comment. I think that the city doesn't need to be accumulating cash. And so I don't think that changes what I'm trying to say. I think, what I think is that the city at this point needs to have an auditor, a city-appointed auditor,
In-house or?
in-house,
In-house.
in-house, yep. serves at the pleasure of the commission, similar to the attorney and, city attorney. It's just changing one word.
Just a question, do you have the arm's length separation when you have somebody in-house versus, a lot of times you have to have an independent auditor, so having someone in-house might make certain things no longer independent.
I think you still have to have an independent audit every year.
Yeah.
anyway.
I guess that's my point, is having someone in-house.
If I can,
Okay.
I don't think it's necessarily a given that the language requiring the appointment of, frankly, my position or the auditor means that it has to be an employee. The commission can elect
Okay.
to appoint an outside firm as the city auditor, or to appoint an employee that reports directly to the commission. Is that?
Okay.
But there would be an associated expense with either an employee or
Right.
a consulting firm.
At the time this was approved, there was a cost estimate given in 2014. That is when the auditor came to light. I don't recall what those are, but obviously the salary of such a position, plus their staff, plus office and all those items.
Another argument for city hall, a new city hall.
I think it's an expense worth it.
So we're looking to change shall to.
To May.
To May.
Change.
No,
May
May to
to
shall. May to shall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that your motion, Mr. Lewis?
That is my motion, to change shall,
May to.
may,
May to shall.
you know what I mean.
Okay, anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion?
And just one tidbit from staff, it's more than financial auditing. We understand that this is someone that go through departments and perhaps look for efficiencies.
Exactly.
Stuff along those lines.
That's the point, yeah. And that, the point is that the position does not report to the city manager.
Correct.
Position reports to the commissioners.
Correct.
And that's a key point.
Ms. Wright?
So I just want to make sure. So are we saying to hire someone or leave it up to them if they hire someone or a company?
The
The
way it
word
reads-
says appoint.
It
Is that
says
correct?
may now, so they have the option not to.
They have to
No,
appoint
no,
somebody.
No.
that's not my question. I don't care about the we shall. My question is, do they have the flexibility of bringing someone in-house? Or are you saying you want them to hire somebody in-house, or they shall hire someone? They don't necessarily have to be an in-house auditor or just an auditor.
Correct.
Up to the commission.
I think
They-
that's what,
The point is, they don't have to be an employee of the city of
That's
Daytona
all I
Beach.
want. Okay.
correct.
As Ben said, they could be a CPA firm, but the function is the same. They are the city auditors.
Although if their job is going to be beyond financial, then just hiring a CPA firm might not be the way to
Might not
go.
be.
But then that's something the commission would have to decide.
Mm-hmm.
Because it would be their position that they were filling. I'm not going to use the word employee.
I think-
Okay.
Let me read this section. So the city commission may appoint a city auditor who shall serve at the pleasure of the commission and who shall be charged with conducting financial fiscal compliance, financial procedure, legal and administrative audits of all city departments, offices, agencies, and programs. The city auditor shall act as the head of the internal audit department and shall be responsible for administration of the department, including the appointment, supervision, and removal of all personnel employed in the department. The compensation for the city auditor shall be fixed by the commission in sums with the duties imposed. The city auditor shall be duly licensed certified public accountant and shall be a practicing CPA for at least 5 years. The city commission may require the city auditor to reside within the city, but in the absence of a specific requirement, the city auditor need not reside within the city while serving in that capacity. The city auditor shall be subject to an annual evaluation of the city commission.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Tish. And based on that reading, my earlier interpretation may not be correct. I think the commission would have authority to hire a particular person at a CPA firm who would then manage the in-house staff, but it would have to be a person as opposed to a firm. And there's not as much of a difference at that point, I think, between hiring somebody who may retain their private capacity in that firm and just hiring somebody as an employee. It would still be a choice, but I don't see this as being authority to retain a CPA firm to act as the auditor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
just-
that
has
that
this
changes
ever-
the answer to your question a little bit, yeah.
Has the city ever done this?
The city first adopted the current version of this provision, which reads may, based on the last charter review.
2014.
And they've never appointed anybody to act as the city auditor.
Prior to that, we had an internal city auditor,
That was hired by the city, or the
but
city.
hired by, that worked for the city manager.
City manager.
So just to be clear, the flexibility is there to bring someone in-house or to hire an independent firm.
No,
It
I mean,
doesn't
I
sound
was
So
wrong
this is,
earlier.
this is stating it has to be in-house.
Well, technically, you could bring in-house staff who would be employees and who would report to the auditor.
Qualified.
And the auditor could technically be employed under a contract, for example, that, allows them to do other work. It's much less of a difference than the one I was talking about earlier, where I had originally read this to allow them to hire a CPA firm as the city auditor, and I don't think this would allow that.
So the way it reads, it's requiring us to hire a whole new staff in-house. Is that correct?
Well, assuming that the auditor required staff.
Yeah.
There's similar language in the city attorney position, but if the commission doesn't budget for support staff, then they're.
Yeah, what's our budget's several $100 million a year?
The total budget,
Yeah,
I think it's in the neighborhood of 300.
300 million.
Yeah,
One person, I mean,
right.
good luck. So it's going to be an impact. I think it would be nice to know, what that would mean before we would vote on something like this. I agree with the intent, but I think independent versus in-house would be, the flexibility would need to be there.
But we have to have an independent every year, an independent audit. We already pay for that, we have to have that every year.
So what is this doing?
This is doing everything that's said there. It's like, it's going to kind of supervise and look at and examine how the money's flowing within. So you might not have you might have already caught that building permits overage, or you might,
Independent auditors still can do that.
That's
no,
annual.
but the independent auditor is doing, are you saying, when you say independent auditor, are you saying?
I'm saying
you're
independent
arguing?
firm, like you're hiring someone that's not necessarily in-house.
So you're saying, you're separating that from the annual independent audit that has to.
Correct, yeah, I'm
You're saying
sorry.
a consulting firm
Yeah,
as opposed to an in-house. Okay.
exactly.
But
Okay, cool.
I think there's two key points in this whole thing. If you do it the way it currently is, that auditor is appointed by the manager. The way we're proposing.
No.
No, currently it is appointed by the city commission.
Okay, by the city commission, because that was the discussion we had earlier. And the other point is that it has a larger scope of work than an outside audit firm does. So and it catches the problem early
Yeah,
on, before it becomes a major problem.
Right. The annual audit that's required is not the same as having an in-house auditor or a private firm that comes in and audits us one way or the other, whatever way the commission wants to do it. But it's an ongoing process rather than at the end of the year, we go, oh, look, we got,
Got a mess.
$500,000 sitting over in this fund, we didn't do it. Well,
It's a management tool.
Several million.
It's a management tool for the commissioners. It helps them
Correct.
run the store. And that's the point. But I don't think it should be an option. I think that at this phase, Daytona's size and its continued growth, I think we've moved past the point of, do we need this? I think it's that we should have this. That's my point. Just changing that word from may to shall.
And I would agree with you, but the shall requires us to bring it in-house. I'm saying it would be nice to have the flexibility to have an independent firm that you hire versus
Still an option.
bringing it in-house.
But I think that would be a
Not an
discussion.
option, I just asked that, what?
Does it preclude that?
Yeah.
I
it
thought Ben
sounds- yeah.
said that it has to be in-house.
No,
That's that's the only.
No,
No, he's saying we could have a contract with somebody else.
You,
which, that's important.
and I apologize for the confusion. based on my recollection of the provision, I had originally advised you here tonight that the city commission could hire a CPA firm. I don't think they can. It's contemplated that the staff of the city auditor's office would be city employees. The nuance is that instead of bringing somebody in here as a full-time city auditor, for example, the employment contract for the individual person under contract, the city auditor, could allow for somebody who is with a CPA firm to manage that group. But that's a small difference between that and somebody being a full-time employee.
I think as a practical matter, this is a full-time job. You know, I think this is a full-time job, and I don't think having somebody outside, unless they would dedicate somebody, you know, then basically they're in-house every day. But I think that the size of the city and the size of the dollars we're talking about, this is a full-time job. It's not somebody coming in, as I say, unless that outside firm were to dedicate that person.
And I'm going to go back to, I'm going to kind of use one of your arguments. In 2014, when they put this was added in that charter review, right? That's how they wanted it written. So maybe we should let them vote on it the way they've wanted it written in 2014. And if the city commission, when they get this, doesn't want to change May to, they want to change May to shall, but they want to tweak the type of employment, they could do that at that time when they approve it. So we're just recommending that we think that position is important to the city.
Required.
Yes, yes, shall. We are shalling it. Okay, are we ready to vote? Okay,
Mr. Brown?
In favor of the change to shall.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. White?
No.
Mr. Lloyd?
Yes.
Ms. Malia?
Yes.
Ms. Wright?
No.
Vice Chair Ruby?
yes.
Okay. So that's what, 5-2?
Down to the last one.
And our last item is a new addition. It would best be suited in section 41.5, but that'll be up to staff. I have the statement, the city desires to preserve our environmental resources for the quality of life and economic prosperity of its citizenry. In support of this, the commission shall by ordinance establish an environmental advisory board and shall provide standards and procedures for such board. The purpose of this board is to review environmental regulations and standards and make advisory recommendations to the commission. Qualifications of the board shall be established by ordinance.
I move that we adopt this.
Anyone want
I second.
Okay. All right, discussion.
I just wanted to say that in attending the dinner, I saw two of the other ladies that I know that are very environmentally inclined and in garden clubs and native plant inclined and so on. I didn't even realize, in my own ignorance, that there was a beautification board, but this isn't beautification. This is the quality of life and, you know, what the growth of our city is. And I just really feel that we need to move forward with this type of a commission.
Okay. I have a question on this. It's just saying, it's probably a Ben question. Yeah, the purpose of the board is to review environmental regulations and standards and make advisory recommendations to the commission. Are we talking about doing this on site plan, as part, making it part of site plan review? Or planning board or plan development? Like, just advisory recommendations doesn't really say how it fits into the structure.
Well, they would all coalesce and work together, the Community Development Board, the Planning Board, and all of them, they should coalesce together. I mean, the Beautification Board can do some, but not much.
But what are they recommending? Are they just going to recommend? we don't
Greening.
build here, we
What-
don't, we only
it-
put native plants,
The
or,
language is general. It'll be up to the commission to adopt ordinances assigning responsibilities to the board.
but we
it-
could put, is there a reason we can't put some of that in here if we want to?
To an extent, but what I'm doing while you're talking about this is referring, I need to find the information that I shared with you, I think maybe at our first meeting, about some recent statutory provisions adopted at the legislative level, which prohibit initiatives or referenda in regard to both comp plans and land development regulations. Now, you're talking about a process. You know, technically, our planning board is established in the land development code. I don't know if that constitutes a land development regulation the way statute's worded. It's possible, depending upon the level of responsibility that you were to seek to add to this board, that might be seen as a land development regulation, meaning a procedural hurdle that somebody has to jump through to get their development permit approved.
Well, that would be the point, though.
That's the
But
point.
the point is, the legislature said you can't.
I understand that.
So you'd be better off letting the commission, do that by ordinance, which is clearly allowed.
It's clearly allowed, but
Okay.
that doesn't mean that it would behoove them to do that, or they even think about it. That's like this commission. We're required every 10 years to do a charter review. The
Right.
beautification board has a job, and the other boards do.
So if you were to get more specific and require this board to be a mandatory review, for example, for a PD agreement or site plan, I believe that would fall within the preemption of 163.3167 sub A, B Florida statutes. Because the only way this amendment could be adopted is by referendum, and that statute prohibits a referendum in regard to any land development regulation. So if you were to make it more specific, depending upon the language that you use, I would likely advise the commission that would not be a legal charter amendment. But you can make
Can we make the recommendation?
you can absolutely make the recommendation.
And obviously, you'll notify the commission
Yeah.
of the
But it depends on what language you.
the danger.
So, yeah.
I know what lawyer, Tallahassee is pretty much neutering us from
Exactly.
controlling what we're doing with our own communities. When will a city or a county or a group of cities get some testicular fortitude and challenge this law?
They do it every year with Florida League of Cities trying to stop the preemptions that.
Yeah, but it's got to be, where's that got us? It hasn't got us anywhere.
Be careful how you vote.
I'm just wondering, when the cities are going to say, wait a minute, we're more than just ribbon cutters here. We're trying to control our growth in our community.
If the city commission, wanted to adopt this, they certainly could adopt it.
But I think, did you have a
I'm just,
comment?
a separate point, but go ahead.
I was just going to say, it sounds like what you're saying is it's almost a two-step thing, is that you would recommend the establishment of this board by referendum, and then the city, the commission would set up through the LDC and ordinances how it would be functioning.
It depends on the change that you want to make to this. I mean, I articulated one form of the change, but it wasn't necessarily what you were suggesting. But I think if in this process, you made it mandatory for this board to review development permits, I think the risk is that would run afoul of the preemption. If it was something softer than that, I don't know what that would be, but I may not give the commission the same advice, but I'm just telling you, the legal issues surrounding this, you should go ahead and make whatever changes to this provision that you think are appropriate to recommend to the commission.
And can I ask for clarification or my understanding? If the goal is to have professionals who are aware of the environment and the environmental impacts to look at our LDC, our different rules and regulations that we have, and make suggestions to improving those, this is that format. If you just want a board that's another, has to follow the letter of the law and regulation and rubber stamp it or not, then that is the other way, which is potentially legally questionable.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Or just maybe make a point? Is we have a ton of advisory boards. Is there a way that maybe you could add these goals within a current advisory board? There are several advisory boards that go for weeks, months without even having anything come up in front of it. So, I mean, we're adding another layer to our current, multi-layered system.
We have the Economic Development Advisory Board is charged with the responsibility of reviewing the brownfields in the city, of which there's a lot. So when a proposal comes forward to develop a brownfield, then that comes in front of the Economic Development Advisory Board to consider. That's as close as we come that I know of. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not saying that it's currently being done. I'm suggesting that maybe some of these goals, these parameters, be put within a current boards that we have.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, that would, that's the closest that the city that I know of has come to taking what we call hotspots or, contaminated
yeah.
property and asking a board to review it.
Right. Like a redevelopment board. I mean, there's several of these regulations that they would be maybe tasked with looking at, as opposed to
Right,
creating another layer.
I think the spirit of what we're trying to do is,
Totally agree. I'm saying, you're wanting to create a new board. I'm saying, rather than create another board, put some of these goals within our current board systems that already have these regulations, that already have the parameters to approve, not approve projects.
that
Well,
may
the-
get lost.
The only,
That don't do that.
That may get lost.
why don't we have Sandy, do you have a comment?
I have a lot of comments.
Sandy Murphy, I think that some of you weren't listening to Drew when he made his last comment, because what I heard him say is that this doesn't have to be a board that is stuck into the regulatory process, but it can still have some very important functions, because there's nobody in this city right now, to my knowledge, who has the only job of looking at environmental impacts of our land development code, of the choices that we're making in terms of all over development, who's looking at our coastal development, who's looking at our natural resources, our animals. There's so much that an environmental advisory group could do that could be very impactful without having to insert that into the planning process yet. And I think it would be the way to get this into the activity. Second thing, the expertise that you're looking at, I think, is very different from the boards that we have right now. And so I think you'd be trying to recruit an entirely different type of board member, which is why I wouldn't want to push this into any of the existing boards. I don't think they have the skill set to make this type of recommendation.
Point
Thank
well
you.
taken.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
well taken.
I would like to make a comment. It's exactly what I wanted to say, is that the existing boards have a different agenda. They have a whole different scope of what they're attempting to advise on. We have had the luxury of forgetting about the environment for the last 200 years. We no longer have that luxury. We are a coastal city. We have a beach that's disappearing. The beach, by far, is the #1 economic driver of our city, with bar none. The reason they started NASCAR was because they raced on the beach. The reason people come to Daytona Beach is for the beach. Now, the city does offer a lot additional, which is one of the reasons I like Daytona Beach over any other beach. And so, I really appreciate what the city of Daytona Beach means over its history. But it's important to realize that we are no longer in a mode where we can ignore the environment. Just the planning boards, the property rights bills, And then if we find that that is in challenge to the quality of life here in Daytona Beach, i.e. our town is getting flooded every year, that's a problem that we need to address. And if it has to backfeed up to it, and if we have to go to the League of Cities and campaign to have some of the city legislation changed, then we have the power to drive to do that. I just think, as Sandy stated very clearly, it's a whole different breed of animal, if you will, on this board with a different agenda than all the existing boards. I've listened to the other boards. I've heard how that they approve things, and you're correct, some of them, they don't have anything to approve. But I see this as a very important, that's why I originally had suggested we have a date of establishment by the end of the year. But this board will define its path. It will define, and again, with the city's commission's approval, will define how these recommendations are adopted, and then we can worry about the legal question into other existing boards.
Yes.
Are any of our other boards in the charter?
Planning board.
So the only other board in the charter is the planning board?
Is it the Board of Adjustment?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how is that language compared to this one?
Well, the planning board is very specific, and I think that's in part because under Chapter 163 of the Growth Management Act, we're required to appoint a land planning agency, and we've designated the planning board as that agency. If you give me a minute, I can find the language on both the planning board and the Board of Adjustment.
And while Mr. Gross is doing that, there is an article, what is that, 12? General provisions. Section 45 is advisory boards. The city commission may at any time appoint an advisory board or boards composed of citizens qualified to act in any advisory capacity to the city commission, city manager, or the department of the city government with respect to the conduct and management of any property or institution or the exercise of any public functions of the city.
So the language, in case you all have copies of the charter, on the planning board and the Board of Adjustment is in Article 3, Section 6, which is entitled Planning and Zoning Powers. Sub A creates the planning board, sub B creates the Board of Adjustment. I can read that out to you, but you were asking Mr. White how.
Basically trying to establish, does the charter create boards, or is that done in a different capacity?
The duties of the planning board read as follows: the board shall advise the city manager and the commission on all planning and zoning matters and shall exercise all other responsibilities as may be provided by law. B reads regarding the Board of Adjustment, it will hear and determine appeals from administrative decisions, applications for variances, in cases involving hardship and such other matters as may be required by the commission.
But then to answer Jack's question, by ordinance, the advisory boards are given their life. Is that correct?
I mean, yes,
Various ad
but
hoc
there's
different
clearly,
advisory boards.
there's clearly some required authority for the planning board and the Board of Adjustment in this,
Correct.
Provision of the charter.
But advisory boards, as she just said, can be established.
Oh, yeah,
right,
sure.
I guess maybe, I think we need to, what is the intent of this board we're talking about? What are we trying to achieve here? You know, to me, excuse me?
Just to advise.
Yes, to advise about what? I mean,
Well, to bring as.
Wait,
as-
who was speaking? Let's let him
Okay.
finish. I
Um,
understand.
you know, when this first came up, I was kind of envisioning a board that's an advisory board that has some authority, that would be in the progression of, it would probably precede the planning board. It would review plans and site plans and PUDs and PDs to determine what the impact of some of the development we're seeing. Like I mentioned the other day, I got a wild turkey living over on Woodland Avenue on the beach side. You know, we're just really stripping our wildlife habitat, or filling in our wetlands. and I don't think we can continue doing that forever. I mean, it's we got floods and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of envision this board as saying, time out, let's look at what clearing 400 or 500 acres down to the water level, what kind of impact is that going to have on the surrounding the surrounding properties? I think the board needs to be made up of, we got colleges here. We've got Daytona State College, Bethune-Cookman, Embry-Riddle. We got environmental people that are professionals in this field to advise us. And I think some of the board membership should be made up of professionals in the field. So I think that the board should be made up more than just people that, are concerned about the environment, but actually have, some scientific data. And
Which it could.
yeah, and so to me, but I'm concerned about what Mr. Gross is concerned about, that's going to put us in violation of 163, because it's going to put us, there's going to be a new hurdle for the development. And that can be said about anything we do, to try to control our land. And that's why I said, when is some city, municipality, or government, county government going to stand up and say, wait a minute, what about home rule? What about home rule here? Does Tallahassee tell us how many acres we can clear and how much fill we can put on wetlands? So that's the kind of thing I saw this advisory board stepping in and saying, time out, Now, I don't know what Drew was talking about here. Is there another way to get there? Is there another way to skin that cat?
So exactly what you're saying is an advisory board, not a regulatory board.
Right.
So advisory board would be the suggested path for your stated goals. Those would be the professionals that would come up with the new rules. A regulatory board counts the number of trees you have according to the existing LDC, nothing more, nothing less.
Okay. Would that run afoul of the law, Ben?
What, this, I didn't want to answer for you, but this is an advisory board. It's not a regulatory board. It's stating that there is a need. And as you said, they would define their position. They wouldn't have requirements to, go before the redevelopment or development board and say, you can't do this. It's to bring it to the fore.
I'm actually hearing, to be honest, your conception appears to be different from Mr. Zimmerman's. It appears to be different.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, Mr. Zimmerman, I would need to see the language to be able to, venture a guess. I can tell you right now that I'm comfortable with the language of the provision as it's written, and then I don't know the answer to your question until I have some revised language. I don't know if, Drew, you're prepared to suggest something, or if you're if you're stating that your thinking is that the existing language would address that
The
situation.
existing language was a reflection of what I believe the previous conversation. If you want to have the most impact with professionals, I believe advisory, doing scientific analysis, stuff like that, they would have a greater impact than another hurdle, which, if we're strategically speaking, another hurdle probably fails. Because we're always accused of things aren't moving quick enough and all those. But a smart advisory board of actual professionals and well-researched personnel that are advising the commission, hey, we need more trees to soak up 40,000 gallons, whatever, water a minute. That is just the way I heard your statement, was that more of that professional advisory capacity as opposed to regulatory.
I think that if you had a committee or a board with those credentials, and they made an advisory to the commissioners would be ill-advised to ignore it. I think politically, it would not be the thing to do. So you may be getting inferred authority by having the right team. But there have to be people who have done Phase 1 audits, and they've done these things in order to have that credibility that when they write a statement to the commissioners, they should listen to it.
Okay, yes.
But I want to be clear. So earlier, Drew and Letitia, Am I correct in you saying it is something already in the charter that allows the commission to
Create
create advisory boards? So we really wouldn't need to do this. It is already a mechanism in place for us to request that they do this. Is that what I'm hearing?
That is correct.
Okay.
But
I
it's not
think- but-
required
It's
for
not
them to do
required.
it. And what I'm proposing would be that they would be required to have an environmental, shall not may.
Right, I think that really is, it seems to me that kind of is the question. Do we want to vote to have this be in the charter? So that it puts some real point of emphasis on it and the need? Or do we want to just then try to lobby from the audience before the commission as time goes on?
I
So
think we shine a light on
I
it.
think we're, what?
I said, I think we shine a light on it.
Right.
By
I-
doing this.
So I think,
Amen.
does anybody else have any more comments? I think we could.
Oh.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
I don't necessarily disagree with the idea of creating it, but again, is the Charter Commission the mechanism by which to do it, especially without much information? We're giving them an idea with no details,
We'll give them,
other than you need to create this advisory board, and you're required to, and you have to come up with the rest.
And I think we need to put, if we add some language in here, there needs to be some, address the makeup of the advisory board. They should have at least, a certain number, 2 or 3 people with scientific backgrounds in the environment,
Well, I mean, but and again, specifics, I mean, we're St. John's Water Management, Army Corps of Engineers. I don't have the expertise. I don't know, what kind of expertise we would detail in there. So again, is the Charter Commission the mechanism by which to create this?
To address that point, if it is the desire of the city commission to put this on referendum, it would be that city staff would be charged with researching what other practices of other cities and counties do and looking at their criteria, whether it's environmental studies professionals, oil field people, whatever it is, that we may not know at this point.
exactly.
I can tell you through my own research, other cities do this. And we are somewhat behind the 8 ball in not doing it. And it's more critical for the city of Daytona Beach than it is to some of the other cities inland, such as Orlando and some of the other cities. There are over 7,500 cities out there now that are in the climate environment. So, we're way behind, and we are more affected by the environment than some of the other cities that have already adopted it. My suggestion in this is that, yes, the city could have started an environmental board 100 years ago. They chose not to. They could have established it 20 years ago. They decided not to. They could have done it last year. They could have done it every time the city flooded. They chose not to. What we're doing here is saying that they have to create this board. And then the makeup of the board and the determination of its scope will be determined by the board when they do their initial presentation to the city
that's not what he's
commission,
saying.
which is how every other board is done.
Ms.
Okay.
And Ida has.
Oh, yes.
Madam Chair, so I'm going to direct, did I not hear you state that if we brought this forward to the commission, then you would advise them about the legality of what we brought forward?
Regardless, but I want to be clear, the version of the provision that you see in the package that Mr. Driscoll prepared, I don't think would trigger an issue
Correct,
under the statute.
correct.
Okay, so does anybody else have any other comments? Are we ready? Call the question. Are we ready to vote? I think it's vote on it as it is.
And Madam
Put it
Chair,
in the charter or not. Did I get a first and a second?
We have it first.
and did you ask if there were any public comments?
I
Just
have
for the
Are there
record.
any other public comments?
All right.
No.
Mr. Miller, do you have any?
Steve? No. Okay, all right. Let's do a roll call vote then.
Okay. Mr. Brown,
Very much in favor.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. White,
Yes.
Mr. Lloyd,
Yes.
Ms. Malia,
Yes.
Ms. Wright,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ruby.
Yes.
Seven
All right.
to 0.
Amen.
Okay, I think we're done, aren't we?
I think we are.
Okay, except for now, we have comments from the CRC committee. Does anybody have any other comments they'd like to make?
You know, I don't know if it's too late to bring this up. I mentioned it early on, and I apologize for going to North Carolina, but I don't. Anyway, mountains are beautiful. But, you know, this Tuesday night, tomorrow night, the county council is going to look at opening up a section of beach from ISB down to Auditorium Boulevard. And part of the idea there is that the traffic exiting the beach will come up Main Street and help that blighted corridor. Now, I know the county runs the beach. Now, and the other thing about that is the Main Street Business Merchants Association is they're dying down there. And I've been here all my life, and I remember when that corridor was a thriving corridor, you know. I think taking cars off the beach was a catastrophe, but that's neither here nor there. I think we should have a representative, and I don't know whether this goes in the charter or not, but there should be some kind of designated liaison, whether it's a city commissioner that on a revolving basis, that is a liaison with the county to address beach issues with the county. Because it seems to me what's happened is Daytona Beach has just washed their hands of whatever goes on down there at the beach. And as a result, we've got the Main Street. I mean, I think that's a perfect example. If we look at Main Street, what it was 40 years ago or 30 years ago, and when they took cars off the beach, to what it looks like today. And us taking our hands and washing our hands of it and say, it ain't our problem. Well, it is our problem. We got we got businesses that are dying down there. We got people that are struggling. There are citizenry that once was a thriving corridor, and it's blighted. And I'd mentioned it early on, but it probably got lost in the shuffle. I think there needs to be a designated liaison, a city commissioner on a revolving basis that has the responsibility to address the county council. There should be somebody over there tomorrow night from the city commission or a representative from the city saying, supporting the Main Street Business Association or the merchants who are going bankrupt down there, and Daytona's silent on it. Silent. And that's their own business. To me, that's not right. And you know, I don't know whether there's any room to put, designated a liaison between the city of Daytona Beach regarding beach issues in the county or not, or whether that we've gone too far down the road to put that in there now. But I just think us washing our hands of what goes on that ocean out there is hurting us and has hurt us, and we've got all kinds of ample evidence to show it, how bad it's hurt us.
I actually think that a position, I wouldn't recommend it be a rotating commissioner, but I could see creating, we have the city manager, auditor, and attorney, that we have a designated city-county liaison that reports directly to the commission, and that it's a full-time job. Because I think to your point, we are just kind of letting all of that slide, and it gets designated and dealt with at the staff level. You know, if there's an issue with the county, it gets dealt with at the staff level, and then it just kind of mushes away and disappears. So I would like to see that, but I think it's late, and I don't know if anybody has any appetite to just go, oh yes, that's a great idea, let's do that and go home.
I think that's a great idea. Let's do that.
All right, anybody else?
That can be in our minutes.
Anybody else have any other comments or want to comment on that comment?
Yeah, and I thought we did have appointed representative. I know when I've gone to the county meetings, there's generally people from the city. Now, is our participation what it should be? As he just stated, I don't think so. You know, as far as it being a full-time job, that's a whole different category. But I think it is important we do have a liaison. I don't know if we can put that in the charter.
And we currently do.
Yeah, and I thought we did.
Do who?
Yeah,
Marty
so,
Smith is our government affairs representative.
okay, but, and he does report to the commission as requested.
Correct. He reports to me, who reports to Eric Pietro.
Yeah, so I think we're already covered there. Now, is the job being done the way it should be done? That's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, and let's not forget the fact that staff meets with county staff on a regular basis. We have the the mayor's roundtable, or the elected officials roundtable. We have the County City Managers Association that meets on a regular basis. Our manager and Mr. Rechtenwald meet on a continuous basis. So it's not that we're not represented, but in the county, even if we're not in a,
Will there be anybody there from the city tomorrow night?
I cannot speak to that.
There better be.
Okay.
Be careful.
I will not.
Any other comments? Oh, Evelyn, did you want, no? Okay. Anybody comment from the audience? No? Yes?
Before we adjourn, we need to decide who's going to report to the commission at the June 5th meeting, the
Okay.
report that we're going to bring back for you guys to approve on the 3rd.
We can do it at the next meeting?
We could do it at the next meeting.
Let's do it at the next
I
meeting.
think the chairman
meeting
should be able to
is-
do that.
Well, the chairman,
He's back there.
he's right out there. All right, so we'll put that on, that's a good suggestion.
Okay.
We'll do that next
So-
meeting.
So
Yes.
there's going to be a staff-prepared report for the commission to adopt?
Yes.
That's, yes.
Okay.
So
So we'll have 2 votes.
that's the next thing we'll have at our next meeting,
Correct.
so essentially,
So the next meeting could be very short since we already voted on everything.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Can you make the print a little bigger?
I will. Sorry about that.
I
Okay.
refonted mine because I could not.
I was like, oh, even I was like.
All right, this meeting is adjourned.
Is there a little hand?
Thank you very much.